What does it do, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Scotty Says. I am your host, and welcome to episode 108, my folks. And in this episode, my intention is to come to you with concise precision in the name of brevity. I intend to bring you this 108, because as a famous philosopher once said, if the sheep are deceased, why beat them? And in the case of the Rams, these lambs, why, they're not quite deceased, can't mark time of death yet, but they're wheezing, they're gasping, they're on their side with their little legs in the air, taking deep ones. They're not feeling well. And for me, I know people will say, but they were bad last year, remember? We are at now the 9-game mark in the season, my folks. And, well, with the 17-game schedule, we are now past the halfway mark. And I know they will say, but remember last season at the 9-game mark, they were 3-6. They were 3-6, and then they went 7-1, and they made the playoffs. And the coach is a genius. You understand? And I told you when they were 1-4, even before that, after that dreadful Cardinal loss, and then the way the toothless bears gnawed on them, I told you the Rams have glaring flaws. And really, to be perfectly honest with you, the majority of the problem is coaching based. I know, you're not supposed to say it. I know. That's why you can come here, my folks, because I'm going to give you the real. But as a result, I am broadcasting from an undisclosed location on the outskirts of the city. So be it. I'm going to speak the truth as I see it. Because I warn against groupthink, lemming behavior, cult-like devotion. I warn against this groupthink mentality that leads people and societies, millions of people even, to follow deranged lunatics or to engage in atrocities most foul. And yet they justify their behavior somehow in some convoluted delusional mindset that they concoct, or maybe that the dear leader feeds them. They drink the Kool-Aid, and I know I'm mixing my metaphors, but I bet you know what I'm talking about. And so in the case of the LA Rams, there is a narrative, and you know I've talked about it in numerous episodes. There is a narrative. There is a halo effect around the head coach, the boy wonder, McGenius. And so in his case, he is the beneficiary of all of the credit when the Rams do well, every bit of it. And when the Rams stink, he gets none. Not one hard-boiled egg, none of the blame. And so you see this game after game, loss or victory, you see it. And I just keep coming here to the outskirts, and I just present you the facts, and I hope you've been following along now. Episode after episode, by now, you know about the 25-30 principle. We'll get to it in the numbers. By now, you know about the condition that the head coach suffers from, pas hapius. You know about his unbalanced tendencies and proclivities. You know that essentially, unchecked and unchallenged with absolute power at the palace in Inglewood, there has been a rot that has set in, a decay, if you will. And you can see it in the results, in the way the team plays. The Rams are not a well-coached ball club. Too many mistakes. And not only players' mental gaffes, but perplexing, head-scratching, inexplicable play calls from the main man, the commander-in-genius himself. And so, I'm not going to go through all of the evidence. I've gone over the case against McWonder in depth. You know about the book of McWonder now. But I will say, for the first time, beside from here, I've heard the beginning of whispers. What is he doing? What was that? Why would you do that there? That's peculiar. Just little whispers. And on the radio today, this morning, in fact, the LA Sports call-in public, they were pretty agitated about some of the decisions Coach McSquander employed. The phone lines were flooded today with callers, and even one of the radio talk show hosts himself agreeing that it was inexplicable. We'll discuss this play in depth. But joining the radio host, his co-host, a former Rams baller himself, ex-player, has a ring with the Rams. In fact, on the air, radio in LA, and this guy, for the first time, I hadn't heard him say it before. He said, "I'm really upset. These people have the nerve to question McWonder." He said, he said, "These people, who maybe they're plumbers or carpenters." It's a dig. Maybe they're office workers, and they have the audacity to question the genius. Nothing that he does can be questioned. It must be simply accepted. And I was driving, and I was like, damn, really? Yes. And so I said, now this is the second week in a row now I've heard a former athlete, ex-player, on the air, extolling, gushing about McGenius, and essentially stating that whatever he does is right. And this guy today saying no one is qualified to even question McWonder. That's dangerous. That's a dangerous mindset. I'll never be a party to that kind of groupthink. I will always be a free thinker till the end. That is a guarantee. And so it doesn't matter to me if, in fact, I have to stand alone in my belief set or opinions. It's okay, because I feel that confident in my conclusions, that I'm willing to say the rest of the population could be there. If I see it the other way, I'll stand there. I sure will. I'll even broadcast from the outskirts. And so the point being, my folks, is we must question McWonder. It's imperative that we do. And the evidence is quite clear. And then the reverse halo effect when you see coaches like Mike Tomlin, who essentially make genius moves and constantly win. The Steelers are sitting on top of the Ravens as we speak. When the experts thought they would be 500 or so, but Mike Tomlin's never below 500. You dig? Never been. 17 years, never been under 500. 18 now, won't be under 500. McGenius can't say that. McGenius may very well be under 500 this year to go along with 5-12. We know about that. So, honestly, for me, I would rather have a consistency in my head coach. Someone that you can rely on. We're going to play a certain way, and we're going to get certain results, and we're going to coach it that way. And it's not free for all, loosey-goosey, whatever we think the defense is giving us today. There is, at the risk of sounding repetitive, a system in Pittsburgh. And see, McGenius, I give him credit. He's rah-rah. Everybody out there and fire everybody up. And yeah, my son's first birthday. Okay, I give you that. But where I think they have given him a pass is, I've been watching all the games, and I've said this before. A lot of these experts, they don't watch all the games. They see a little highlight package, a snippet, and they make an assessment from that. They know the outcome. Oh, the Rams won or lost. They know that going in. They see the little 25, 30-second snippet package of certain highlights, and they reach a conclusion. And they don't see the inner nuance of the game and the decisions being made and the consistency of the blunders, mech blunders to be precise. They don't see them, or they choose to ignore them. Either way, the narrative just continues to spread. But now it's at a point where really you can clearly see they're out of excuses. The ferret and the lemmings, they're out of excuses with McBlunder. Because, before it was, well, there's all these injuries. There's all these injuries, right? That's the thing. Injuries. There's cluster injuries. Okay. Well, Puka was there against Miami. Soup played. Puka and Soup were your leading receivers. Matty, the Doc, he was there. K-Will was there. They were the whole game. In fact, the offensive line, the big high-priced offensive line acquisitions, the highly touted offseason acquisitions, they came back. Jonah Jackson came back and replaced Bo Limmer at center, and he didn't look too great, did he? Bo Limmer, at least, was holding his own. They said, Bo, you sit down. Jonah, you're in there. Uh-oh. Then you got Steve Avila back. Okay, well, we know that he's a quality player. First game back, though. Dedick, you sit down. Okay, now your offensive line is porous and you can't protect it. So now, what can you do if you can't protect? Can't protect. Well, okay. That's coaching. If the big money guys aren't quite ready yet, need another week, why rush back? You're on a 3-game winning streak. You're finally at 500. Why rush them back? You got a couple of rookies holding their own. Why not go with what's working? No, that's coaching to say, yeah, I know we won 3 in a row, but let's swap out our middle lineman. Let's swap out our center for a guy that hasn't played since week 1. Let's swap out our left guard for a guy who admittedly has played very well, but has been hurt most of the season. You have chosen discontinuity on the O-line, and it showed. But wait, there's more. It's not just your O-line where you're doing peculiar things, Coach McWonder. It's also what's going on with your tight ends. What in the name of all that is holy is going on with your tight ends? Now, this goes way back. You know, I've talked about this for a long time, how Coach McGenius will discard quality players seemingly to exalt lesser quality players. Why would you do such a thing? There's a feud. There's some type of vibe. Something's off. I like this guy personally. Remember the Wolver? Remember Stoney and Jake Funk? You remember, and this is where I'm getting back to coaching. See, McWonder's got full and absolute power down there. Okay, so you, admittedly, Higbee is your frontline guy. He got his leg torn up. Admittedly, that was in the playoffs, so he's still recovering. But you made a lot of hoopla about Kobe Parkinson. He's coming to town and he's going to pick up the slack. Kobe Parkinson, big tight end acquisition. Where the hell is Kobe Parkinson? I mentioned it last episode in the Seattle win, how he was basically invisible. Kobe the friendly ghost. Where was Kobe? And now, this game against the Dolphins, it's like you come out in 12 personnel and your two tight ends are Cousin Allen and Long. Hunter Long and Cousin Allen, those are your two tight ends in 12 personnel, and you got Soup sitting on the bench to start the game. And I'm like, what is McWonder doing? Very peculiar. And then, admittedly, you choose to get back into 11 personnel, and Soup and Puka, they're eating. But once again, you eschew the run. Once again, you disregard the 25-30 principle at your peril. We'll get to the numbers. That's coaching. Coach McWonder, will implement nowadays a wrinkle. A wrinkle. And he'll live with that wrinkle for a long time. Remember that putrid 5-12 Super Bowl defense season? Remember McWonder's wrinkle, his big wrinkle? Remember what it was then? He was running Stoney out as a fullback. Stoney, fullback. I remember one play, it's emblazoned in my memory, how he ran a jet sweep in the round for Stoney on 4th and inches and lost 5. I'm like, what are you doing, McWonder? This was 3 years ago. But he comes up with a wrinkle. And now, so this time, his wrinkle is he wants to go 12 personnel with Hunter Long and Cousin Allen. Well, you've discarded Bryson Hopkins. Remember? We talked about that many times. You discarded him. He was a playmaking tight end. He had yak. These guys, they suffer from that dreaded condition. No yak at all. They've got it. Allen and Long, no yak at all. Where they catch it is where they go down. Okay? So you have no dynamism in your tight end room. And then you brought in Kobe Parkinson. He's vanished. Kobe the friendly ghost, he's gone. I don't know where he went. So I'm looking at this. I'm like, this is all coaching. And then we might as well go ahead and get to the game analysis because we're already into it. And I said I was going to keep this one brief, didn't I? So here it is, game analysis. Now, as mentioned, you got Steve Avila and Jonah Jackson back and they are active, and they are starting, and Dedick and Bolemer to the pine. Okay, turned out that probably was a mistake. All right. Also, inactive today is Havenstein. There's more O-line flux. So Havenstein's inactive, and so who is it? Note Go Boom. You've patched Note Go Boom over there at right tackle. So your offensive line is Alaric Jackson and Steve Avila and Jonah Jackson, and then you've got Kevin Dotson and Note Go Boom. And that's patchwork. I don't think we've seen that starting lineup all year long. And they did not grade out well as a unit. Let's put it that way. That's coaching, decision making from the top down. All right, then you decide you want to come out in 12 personnel, but you're coming out with Long and Allen, and you got Soup on the bench. And I'm like, what's going on? And then there was this weird interview with Soup before the game started, and Soup seemed a little melancholy, and I'm like, what is going on behind the scenes at the Palace in Inglewood? But I don't know. These are just perceptions, right? Soup's on the bench. Long and Allen are starting in 12 personnel with Puka and the DeMarcus Robinson. K. Will and Doc are your quarterback and tailback. All right? And so we're going to fast forward quite a bit because, as you already know, the game was a clunker. You know, it was a drag. It was a dud, a stinker. So the Rams only managed 5 field goals on the day. No touchdowns. And there was one, we'll talk about that shortly, that was right there. But back to that old problem. Inability to score touchdowns in the red zone. How long has that plagued the Rams? Haunted the Rams, dogged at the Rams. And that's back. But you can't blame it on injuries, can you? You got because they tried to make it sound like, well, you know, it was because Puka and Soup weren't playing at the same time. That's why they were losing, you see. And now that they're back, everything's fixed. Really? Did you believe that? Did you really believe that? They'll fool you. They'll talk so confidently, the experts, you know, the lemmings and them. They'll talk so confidently that they'll have you thinking, oh, well, they must be right, yeah. And then when they make the pick, quite often they're dead wrong, and you see, oh, they don't know what the hell they're talking about any more than you or I, in many cases. Now, Miami Dolphins took the opening kickoff, punched in a touchdown, went up 7-0. They never trailed in the game. And, you know, over the duration of the game, my takeaways were, Tua, why are you trying to tackle somebody after a poltergeist strike? Tua, you need to be getting back. They got to try to instill in Tua, you, in that case, just let him have the pick six, because you try to tackle him and he trucks you. That's it. You're done maybe for your career. Tua? Okay. Beside that, Miami isn't as bad a team as their record would indicate when Tua's available. But the reality is, the Rams underperformed. They looked bad. They did not look disciplined. They did not look well coached. And finally, I couldn't believe it, my folks, the ferret, I heard him say it. He blurted it out. He said, Miami outcoached the Rams. I was like, wait, rewind. Miami outcoached the Rams. See, that's as far as he'll be willing to go. But what does that mean? Miami outcoached the Rams. Well, when you're talking about coaching and the Rams, there's only one man that you could be referring to. Miami outcoached McWonder. Oh, yeah, they did. No doubt about that. Because, my folks, as you know, there is a book. And Miami, even though they did not follow it to perfection, McWonder was doing McWonder things. And it led to a McWonder result. And that is why I told you well back after the Cardinals drubbing, and then again after the Bears gnawed them, I told you that the Rams' idiosyncrasies start with the main man in charge, that the emperor has no clothes. It's kind of like the great and powerful Oz. Behind the great show, he has these little raggedy wrinkles that he'll unveil here and there, and they don't produce anything. Your screen game is atrocious. Every aspect of your screen game, Mr. McWonder, is repugnant. You refuse to follow the recipe to victory that I have repeatedly sent to you. So you are obstinate to a fault, and then you're all over the map. You're inconsistent. You won't let success be your guide. You seem to forget the lessons that you should have learned repeatedly that I have been here to remind you of. You seem to constantly forget, and with just a win or two under your belt, you go back to your wild, undisciplined, unbalanced, past happiest ways. And then you lose. And that's why I said, as long as this man remains unchecked, as long as he doesn't somehow repent the error in his ways, come around to an epiphanous way of thinking, until that happens, this is what the Rams are going to be: mediocre, very often below 500. And I think that the anomaly was the Rams going and making the playoffs after a 3-6 start last year. This year, as I've said, it would be shocking to me if they could do it. And we'll look at the schedule in a second. So let's quickly move to late in the fourth quarter. So there's 6.5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, and the Rams are down 20-9, but they're driving the ball, right? And they make it down inside the red zone. In fact, they get to second and goal from the 9, and Matty hits Tyler Johnson for 5, and so it's third and goal from the 4, and Matty looking, K. Will leaks out, wide open, left alone, standing at the end zone. Just throw it to him, touchdown. Matty, how he cannot see that? It baffles me still, how something that wide open could be in his blind spot, but he just clearly could not see him. Throws back at the end zone for the DeMarcus Robinson, incomplete. The Rams have to settle for 3. And so there it is once again. This time it's the quarterbacking can be spotty at times. Matty, statuesque. He is not going to get any yards in a scramble. They've been trying this wrinkle with, that's the other wrinkle beside Hunter Long and Cousin Allen in 12 personnel. The other wrinkle has been this rolling pocket, right? And he rolls Matty, and it had some success in the last game, but now that's been on tape, and so the Dolphins have seen that, and they tried that a little bit, which seemed to get them nowhere. Poor execution, field goal. And so now we get to the final drive of the game for the Rams offense anyway. There's like 2.5 minutes left in the game, and the Rams are down 11, right? They need 2 scores, and they're driving, and they get down again inside the red zone. Red zone alert. We know that's McWonder's crucible down there. He just has problems down there with play calling and with execution. There was one scenario where there was, holding and false starts and these penalties that set the Rams back. And so it was really like McBlunders and gaffes and mistakes all across the offense. The defense tried to hold on as best they could. And as I say, Miami with Tua isn't that bad. So there's a minute 43 left in regulation. The Rams are down 11. They need 2 scores. And again, the Rams offense is driving. And there's a big shot. Doc hits TDR with a beautiful throw. Doc can be so up and down, but he hits TDR for 22 big yards along the sideline. The clock stops. And then now inside the red zone, here it is, that crucible, right? And Tyler Johnson gets in on the action, and there's an incompletion, and we get to a 3rd down, and it's 3rd down, and you're inside the 20. It's 3rd down from about the 12-yard line, and McGenius with 43 seconds left on the clock. McGenius, after an incompletion, says, you know what? 3rd down from the 12, 11-point deficit. Well, just kick the field goal then. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Hold on. And then I had to look again. I'm like, did I miss a down? No. 3rd down, driving around the 12-yard line, 3rd down, you're down 11, you've got 40 plus seconds. Why not take that shot in the end zone? Then you only need a 3 from distance to tie the game. But this way, you kick this chip shot field goal on 3rd down. Now you've got to get the onside kick, first of all, but now you've got to get a touchdown. It just, to me, it seemed like bizarre thinking, and that's what they hit him up about on the radio. The callers were like, that was madness. Asinine. And so this guy, baller from the Rams, ex-athlete, said, no, you cannot question McWonder. He is beyond scrutiny. Oh, the Kool-Aid. You see? Lemming talk. Group think talk. Automaton talk. Conveyor belt talk. No. We won't have that here. So I calls them as I sees them. You know that. So needless to say, the Rams would go on to lose the game. That field goal was the end for them, of course. And more so than the loss, and it's a strange stat that Dolphins and Rams have only played 15 times in their histories, which, you would think it would be more because those are 2 fairly old and iconic franchises, but only 15 times apparently. And the Dolphins, the Dolphins are 13-2 against the Rams. Damn. Yeah. The Rams lay over when the Fins come around. 2-13 all time against Miami. Well, anyway, in this case, I don't so much fault the defense as I do the ineptitude of the offense and the really putrid play calling. To me, the game just was uneven. It didn't have any rhythm to it, and I put that at the foot of the head man, not spread it around to whoever is available as a scapegoat. If Mr. Ferret, if the Rams were out-coached by Miami, then say it. Say that your dear cult leader, McGenius, was schooled by Mike McDaniels. They're off the tree. They're off the Grandpappy Shanahan tree. Miami's coach, McWonder, and all of them, Father Shanahan and all of them, of course. But call it for what it is. Say McGenius had a skanker clunker of a game as a play caller. He did. That's fair. And so for that sequence, for that kick the field goal on 3rd down and have an awful onside kick attempt, for that mindset, I have to award that a McBlunder. And so therefore there it is, your McBlunder spotlight sequence of the week. honestly, it's a weekly occurrence, unfortunately. Even in the wins, it's in there, as you know. And so let's look at the numbers, because the numbers bear it out as they always do. Let's go right to it. Well, let's start with the losers, the Rams, wearing that L. Matthew Stafford, Doctor Who. Oh, wait a second. Doctor Who, 32 completions out of 46. 32 out of 46. Stop right there. 32 out of 46. Plus the Rams allowed 4 sacks. Add those in. 32 out of 50. 50 dropbacks for Coach McWonder. I really don't even have to go on, because you already know, with that kind of performance, you're gonna wear that L on your head. He did. He will. He does. And he will continue to. That's the problem. Because even if he reins himself in for a game or two, he can't sustain it. He's not like Tomlin, like a metronome. Tick, 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 constantly. The standard, winning. No, McDaniels is flighty, and I have a brilliant idea. I want Stoney as my fullback for 4 games. No, that's a dumb idea. No, I want Cousin Allen and Hunter Long as twin tight ends while Soup sits on the bench. What in the name of common sense are you doing? I pray thee, kind sir. What in the hell is wrong with you? I digress. 50 dropbacks for Matty from the D. Way too many. What about rushing? Kyron Williams, 15 carries, 62 yards, 4.1 yard per. It's not awful, the per carry average, but he only got 15 totes. Well, there were other runs, right? Well, only Blake Corum, he only had 2 totes. 8 yards is 4 points. I mean, when you're getting 4 yards per carry, you got to keep running the ball. But did they know there were a grand total of 17 runs? 17 runs. So he failed miserably on both metrics of the 25-30 principle. Let's look at the victors. Tua, 20 of 28. 20 of 28 for 207. 1 touchdown, 1 poltergeist strike. 28. Check. Well, there were sacks, though. Tua was sacked 3 times. So 31. Technically 1 over when you include the sack, but he's right there on the cusp of keeping his quarterback in balance and restraining the poltergeist. You see? Now, rushing. Well, they only had 21 carries. So they also were short both metrics. Well, they were right on the edge on the passing metric. But in this case, when neither coach meets both metrics, what do? We look at your differential. We'll call it the balance differential. 31 pass attempts, including sacks for Miami. 21 rushes, that's a minus 10. They were minus 10 balance differential. The Rams, 50 dropbacks, including sacks. 17 runs, minus 33. 33 negative differential, more than triple the differential of Miami. You see? And there it is right there, as plain as day in the numbers. And you say, but he has nothing to work with. Well, Puka was there. He was the Rams' leading receiver on the day. Damn near had 100 yards. He had 98 yards. Puka was there the whole game. He didn't punch anybody. He played the whole game. 11 yards per catch average. What about Soup? He's got Soup. Soup managed to get in the game. He got 7 catches, 80 yards, 11 plus yard per average. Your top big players were there. I mean, you diminished D-Rob and you elevated Long and Cousin. I don't know what that was about, but you're way out of balance. And so it's all there in the numbers, my folks. And so finally, let's just quickly look at the upcoming schedule and then around the league and be out, okay? Now, the Rams sit at 4-5, but their next 5, well, they got New England, but they got to travel on the road, play a morning game, and New England is sneaky. You go out there wanting to be Chucky, and you could end up getting an awful embarrassment out there, but you got to hope they have the wherewithal to pull a dub down against the Pats. But then the Eagles come to town, and I don't like our chances in that. Then you go to New Orleans, who dat, and I think you can get that. But then Buffalo comes to town, and I don't feel comfortable with that prognosis. And then it's them damn Niners and Shanahan. And then COVID towing the Jets. And I told you from the beginning what I thought of them. And I told you they were going to be garbage, and they are. And who knows, he might not even be playing by the time the Rams play them. But you damn sure better get them. But then I've seen such bad losses. And you had to find a way to handle Miami. You couldn't let that get away when you have a relatively challenging schedule in front of you. And then, of course, they finish off with the Hawks and the Cardinals are trying to hold on. And we'll see what them damn Niners do, because they have injuries and so forth too. But there's no excuses. You coach through it and around it, and you keep balling like KC. And when you look around the league, that's what I see. I see a team that they win however which way they got to win. If they need a special teams block, they get that. If they need a run, they get that. If they need a pass over the top, they get that. If they need the defense to intercept, they get that. But whichever way, they get it. 9-0, and they are the 2-time defending champions. I wouldn't bet against them. Okay? But Buffalo is up there to challenge them. And I just have to say again, big up, kudos to Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, the Steelers. I'm so impressed by them. You know, I, for one, thought that why change over from Fields to Russ when Fields had you going along pretty stable? And he said, that's why I'm well compensated. I could say, okay, I completely feel you there. I'm getting paid for this, okay? Well, you can't question the decision. They're rolling. And so I look forward to seeing what they do in that conference over there. But at the same time, you got to give credit to coaching. And I'll tell you this. I believe that now, if the Rams played the Chargers, Harbaugh versus McWonder, the Chargers will mollywop the Rams. Because Harbaugh play hard ball, hard nose. McWonder with all that flighty here and there, and what does the defense give us? Harbaugh follows the formula. And so as you saw, the 25-30 principle, again, remains essentially undefeated. In the NFC, well, I'm extremely impressed with Washington. I said they could be a wild card team, but they're ahead in the division. Now, the Eagles are right behind them. They're right there, 1-2. So we'll see how that plays out. I told you what was going to happen to them damn Cowboys. I told you. You see now. It's over. They're cooked and kaput. Okay, and, well, I'm surprised, I'll admit, by the Vikings. They're still hanging there and around, and they have a pretty good defense, I've noticed. Their points allowed is pretty low, among the better in the NFC, so you can't discount them at this point at 7-2 at this point as we speak. And so I feel like, for the most part, I told you Atlanta and that Tampa Bay could try to get in, squeak in on the wild card. I told you San Francisco would fall off. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out as we now have eclipsed the halfway point. But what I want at this point from you, what I simply ask you to do, is throw me one of these. Only one. Just throw me one. Okay, please like the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you disagree. If you're in the cult of McWonder, if you're on the belt. But I have to believe that you see it deep down. You see it too. Yes, he has his qualities and virtues, but in the end, his inconsistencies and his idiosyncrasies will cost the Rams against quality teams damn near every time. Follow the 25-30 principle, Mr. McWonder. And if you don't, it is at your peril. And so, until the next one, which it won't be too long from this one, because we'll come back to chop it up on the other side of the ugly Patriots game. And I suspect it might be kind of ugly out there. But we'll be back on the other side of that. And until then, my friends, Scotty says, one love.